Thanks for joining us for today's message from our series, Sticks and Stones. As we kick off a brand new year, we're learning straight from God's Word how to make our resolutions more than just words. We're always so encouraged to know that God's using this ministry to touch lives all across the world through what He's doing right here in Charlotte, North Carolina. So if that's you and you have a story to share of how God's working in your life, please send us an email at amen@elevationchurch.org. Also, if you'd like to help support this ministry financially, you can do so by giving online and help us bring messages just like this one to you every single week. Well, thanks so much for joining us, and prepare your heart to hear a word from God.
Well, we have a very, very special message planned for you today, and I want to set it up a little bit. And this is going to be a little bit of a tag team preaching event today. We're in the middle of a series, and the series is eventually going to get to David and Goliath. We've been studying a little bit about this Bible character, David, the greatest king that Israel ever knew, but we've been looking at the story behind the glory, realizing that before somebody accomplishes something great for God, first they have to understand what it means to be anointed by God, which just means called, set apart, empowered, and enabled. And last week we talked about ability and how you've got to develop what God has deposited inside of you. How? With diligence and excellence, understanding your uniqueness and building on each experience that God has given you. Now this week we want to take a word, and the word is attitude. And I'm not going to so much preach about David and Goliath this week as just recap it. And then I'm going to bring up a warrior in his own right to share the stage with me and talk a little bit about this idea of having a passionate attitude. I don't know about you, but I love passionate people. Yeah. I know this phrase that people say sometimes. They'll say, man, that guy tries too hard. You know, I like people who try too hard. I think it's better than not trying at all. And so I'm really more likely to want to hang out with people who have a little passion, even if sometimes our passion can get us into trouble. I like being a person of passion. I want to be a person of passion. And so when you think of the story of David and Goliath, if you've ever read it, or I bet most of you have at least heard of it, you gotta give David some props for his passion. Because I'm not going to read it, but in 1 Samuel 17, and we'll talk about this next week, you'll find out why the series is called Sticks and Stones. See, it's going to be the fourth week, and you don't even know what the series title means yet. But next week, you'll find out. This week, though, I just want to recap kind of the situation. So the Philistines are the enemies of God. This side of the room can be the Philistines. And the Israelites are the people of God, and so this side of the room can be the Israelites. Sorry. And then they're squared off against one another, and they're drawing battle lines, and there's a valley between them, and they're at a standstill. And so one of the warriors from the Philistine side comes forward with an idea. Hey, and this guy's name is Goliath. And we'll talk next week about how tall he actually was, because there are various theories. But we know he was big, and we know he was powerful, and we know he was intimidating, because he said, hey, instead of us all rushing into this valley and killing each other, why don't I fight for the Philistines, and you send a person to fight for the Israelites, and whoever wins that one-on-one, mano-a-mano battle will be the champion, and that nation will win. Now, this is called representative combat. It was nothing strange during this time. It was a way to avoid a lot of bloodshed. And the problem was there was nobody in Israel who would step to Goliath. And so for 40 days, the scripture says that the champion from the Philistine camp came forward and defied the people of God. And then somebody with passion stood up. And we're going to study about this a little bit today, because it always takes somebody with passion to push through and accomplish something great for God. Are you a passionate person? I mean, you're not passionate about everything. You're passionate about something, somebody. Do you have an attitude? I mean, an attitude that causes you, when you see something in the world that you believe God wants done, do you have the kind of passion to step up and say, I'll do it. And we're going to talk about that a little bit today. I'm going to give you, through the course of this interview, 4 things about passionate people. So while you're getting your notes ready, because you want to write all of this down because you're so passionate about God's word, you wouldn't want to miss any of it. I want to show a little video, if you'll check out the screens, to get us ready for our guest who's going to be joining me today to talk about passionate people. Somebody say passion. All right, check out the screen. Here's passion.
That's what happens when you got that fake juice. Steve Smith makes people look like toddlers out there. Will score. When you see this play, that means I scored. Ice up, son. Ice up.
Would you help me welcome to the Elevation stage at all of our locations? Come on, stand up and help me welcome my friend, Agent 89, Steve Smith. This is going to be great. This is going to be great. Well, you may be seated. Hello, my friend.
Hello.
I'm telling you right now, I've been looking forward to interviewing you, and not just because you're famous and good at sports, but because, you know, in the short time I've known you, you've taught me a lot about passion. And we'll get into that in a moment. But first, I wanted to give you one more opportunity because I've been trying to get him to just preach the sermon without me interviewing him. So this is your last chance to. I thought just to kind of, break the ice up, son, if you would. I have a few icebreaker questions. Because a lot of people may not know you or may think they know you, but they don't. So before we get into this teaching thing that I want to do, I wanted to ask you just a few questions. And I did send Steve some of the questions I thought I would ask about passion, but I didn't send him these. So forgive me. But, I just wanted to ask you about your points of passion in life. So this might kind of be silly, but I just wanted to know a few things, just, gut response. Which do you prefer, or which one would you say is better? Okay, few of these. Speed or power?
Power.
Beach or mountains?
Oh, beach.
Are you an early bird or a night owl?
Early bird.
Introvert or extrovert?
Introvert.
Isn't that crazy?
Extreme introvert.
Extreme introvert. Paperback or ebook?
Oh, paperback.
Crushed ice or cubes?
Crushed ice.
Sausage or bacon?
Turkey sausage.
Turkey sausage is good. You ever had deer sausage? Oh, I've been eating so much deer sausage lately. It's delicious. This guy in the church gave me some deer sausage. What's that mean?
That's the color of my skin. I'm not eating.
Well, we might as well go ahead and pray. You're not going to believe the next question. Dark chocolate or white chocolate? I swear that's the next question on my list.
Well, I've been happily married for going on 14 years. White chocolate.
White chocolate. Dress up or dress down?
Dress down.
The Beatles or Jackson 5?
Jackson 5.
Are you detailed or abstract?
Detailed.
Adventurous or cautious?
Adventurous.
Call or text?
Depends on the subject.
Spicy or mild?
Mild.
Would you rather fly or be invisible? Superpower.
Ooh, be invisible.
Hiccups for the rest of your life or feel like you're about to sneeze for the rest of your life?
Sneeze?
Would you rather lose to me in tennis or lose to Vitor Belfort in the octagon?
That's a tough one because Vitor doesn't live here.
Right.
And if I lose to you, I'm gonna get a text and a call if I lose. So
probably not gonna happen. You're probably safe.
I'm not sure.
How about this one? This is the last one I'll do on this silly subject, and then we actually will get into something deep for all the deep folk. Would you rather never play and win or always play and lose?
I'd rather always play and lose because if I'm playing, I give myself a chance.
Great. Hey, so before I get into it a little bit, a lot of people may wonder why we're together and all of that. And, I met you a while back and just kind of hit it off, felt like we had something in common. And it's been cool to see how that relationship has grown. But what's God doing in your life lately in terms of increasing your passion in a general sense? How's he been?
Well, a couple of years ago, me and my wife, we had this big, huge house, and we were trying to figure out, do we want to stay here in Carolina? Do we want to move back home to LA? And so we sold our house, and we were just renting. And I think there's two things that you really think about before you decide to put down roots. Is one, obviously, you have to have a home, and then also have a church. And so for us, we built a home, and we have a home here, and Elevation is our home church. So, Charlotte is our home. And so, Elevation gives us a great opportunity to serve. Last year in Love Week, or last off season, in Love Week, we served as a family, and that was unbelievable. And we just enjoyed that. So coming to this church gives us opportunity to really engage with God and to be taught. And so we enjoy that, and we do it as a family. And then when I don't get the opportunity, because I have kind of this job thing going on, I watch it on the app. And then the unique part with the relationship is when you guys come in here, we knew you guys had an Uptown campus. Yeah. So on Sundays before the games, I scoot into the Uptown campus for home games, and then I scoot out. So it's been very important, not just in my life, but the way God has shaped and molded me to be a part of my family's life. And that's only can happen. And that's only been able for me to finally be the spiritual leader in my home, is to completely have surrender to Him and allow me to lead my house instead of my wife. Mm. Mm.
Yeah, it's pretty cool to see a guy who's got a pretty serious job to do, showing up at church, making it happen. So turn to the person next to you and say, what's your excuse? You don't play in the NFL. By the way, it would be a big miss for me not to say congrats and thanks for a great season. We had so much fun watching. And I want to do this in a way, just set the expectation for the remaining time. I really do want Steve to talk a lot, but we actually just figured out that we were going to do this live recently because we didn't know how long he'd be working on the weekends. And so when I realized that this was the sermon that I wanted to be able to interview him in, and it all worked out, I said, okay, if you'll do it live, I'll do a lot of the talking. So I know you're gonna be thinking, shut up, Furtick, we get you every week, let the man talk. But I promised that I would kind of give some structure to this. So I wanna just give you a few thoughts, and then I'll maybe ask some questions from a perspective that to me is very unique, from Steve's perspective about this subject of passion. And I wanna show them to you from kind of the scene that led up to David's battle with Goliath, okay? So if you wanna follow along with me in 1 Samuel 17, the day that David went to fight Goliath, one of the interesting things about it is that he didn't know he was going to fight Goliath. And you'll see in a moment that he was really just completing an errand, an instruction from his father. So we know that David was a teenager. We know that he was tending his father's sheep. We know that he would go and play music for the king, Saul. And now there's a battle happening and the lines are drawn up. And it says that Jesse, verse 17, 1 Samuel chapter 17, said to his son David, take this ephah of roasted grain and these 10 loaves of bread for your brothers and hurry to their camp. Take along these 10 cheeses to the commander of their unit. See how your brothers are and bring back some assurance from them. They're with Saul and all the men of Israel in the valley of Elah fighting against the Philistines. So it says, verse 20, pay attention to this. Early in the morning, David left the flock in the care of a shepherd, loaded up and set out as Jesse had directed. He reached the camp as the army was going out to its battle positions, shouting the war cry. Israel and the Philistines were drawing up their lines facing each other, and David left his things with the keeper of supplies, ran to the battle lines, and asked his brothers how they were. So I read that to you to say, number one, it was a simple instruction that David was following, not a great opportunity that he thought he had, that positioned him to be used by God to defeat the enemy that day. And I love the language. It says, early in the morning he got up, which for a teenager is a miracle. Amen?
Amen.
And it says, right? And it says that he ran to the battle lines, not even knowing what was waiting there. And so I thought about that idea of running to the battle lines and rising up early and following a simple instruction. And I wanted to give you this first point, and I want to ask a few questions about it of Steve. But I wanted to say that passionate people, one characteristic of passionate people is that passionate people carry out small assignments with a willing spirit. How do you know if you're a passionate person? How do you become a more passionate person? Well, passionate people carry out small assignments with a willing spirit. David, who was the future king of Israel, is delivering cheese and bread to his brothers. How demeaning would that have seemed? I'm the future king. I'm not a pizza boy. I don't work for Domino's. Get somebody else to take the cheese and the bread. But he did it with a willing spirit. And I thought, Steve, so many people see you doing great things and, bringing down giants on the field and accomplishments and stats. But I was wondering, what are some of the small assignments that you have carried out with enthusiasm along the way that brought you where you are today?
One, for me, is rooting for other people. I think that's a characteristic that I try to have, and I have to. It's more of an assignment to me because I wasn't taught that. So I have to make sure I'm consciously doing it and making sure that I'm doing that. Spending one-on-one time with people behind closed doors, not out in front, being seen as that person, but just taking that time. And then for me, it's a small thing because, and I'll say it first, is, being a daddy to my little girl. Because I only have one little girl. I have two boys. And it's very easy to play catch and to wrestle and be all that a dad and a son can do. But being sensitive, thinking before I say something, all those things, it's an assignment for me because I didn't have any sisters growing up. I'm still working out on this husband thing. So, for my daughter, just not being a father, but being a daddy to her is very important. And so that's why.
Do you laugh sometimes when people are envious of what you get to do because they don't know kind of what goes into it behind the scenes?
Oh, yeah. What was that a couple of weeks ago when they said I jammed my finger and I dislocated through the bone and required 5 stitches, and for them to put it back in place, you can have that. So, but I truly believe that if we had the opportunity to spend a day in someone else's shoes, I think we would gladly give them their pair back.
Yeah. Yeah, we'll talk sometimes on Sunday if I'm getting done preaching and you're about to play, and we'll say, do what you do, because I certainly couldn't do what you do. You could do what I do better, closer than I do what you do. Does that make sense? But, the thing about what both of us do that I think we shared in common is we do something that's in front of a lot of people that we spend our whole week getting ready for, in ways that people don't see. And that's not to celebrate just what we do, but everybody in the room can relate to that to some level, is that even if you don't do something really publicly, there are a lot of small things that bring you to that. Like, I don't think there's anybody who knows anything about your career that would define you as anything other than passionate. If nothing else, that's a word that people use to describe you. I wonder, where do you think that passion comes from?
Well, when you gave me this question, I looked for the right answer. I was thinking about trying to find the right answer. And to be transparent and to be very much like you is, to be honest, is one of the things that I know why now, after going through this opportunity of looking, is some of the most important and impactful people in my life that had the biggest opportunity to root me on, to tell me, hey, go Smitty, reach for the stars. You can be anything you want to be. I never heard it. And so for me, I am passionate and I want to be good at whatever I'm doing, is because I never felt and I did not realize what it felt to be rooted on. And so that's why I'm so passionate. It's like, and also too, is if I can't do my job at the ability that I can do it, which gives me the ability to stay here in Charlotte, then that means I have to go back home and I have to hear, see, I told you. And, I don't want to deal with that. And that's one of the reasons why I was very much, when my 10-year reunion came, I was eager to go back. I was, but my wife, she said, is that the right mindset? Should you go back like that? I was like, no. And so I didn't go. Right. But man, I wanted to go. Because it was some
Take
folks.
a look at me now.
Yeah, it was some folks I want to walk in there like, but it was a great, and it was a great opportunity. I would have probably really embarrassed myself and left a bad taste in people's mouths if I'd have went there and showed out. Mm-hmm. And so it was good I did.
That's actually a good transition to the second thing I wanted to talk about, because the second thing we see in David's life and in any passionate person's life, this isn't as much fun to talk about, but we should, is that passionate people must guard their strength or it will become a double weakness. Mm-hmm. And the reason I use David to illustrate this is because, one of the verses that you and I were talking about a few weeks ago when you were in rehab and trying to get better.
It's a treatment.
Yeah, in treatment.
Because rehab sounds like I had a problem.
No, I didn't mean it like that. Yeah, so in treatment. But crazy people go to treatment too. But when you were healing, you were getting better. We were talking about Psalm 51, verse 12, mm-hmm. and it was a verse that I felt like God gave me to share with you to hang on to. And this is from David, much later in his life, at a different situation. He says, restore to me the joy of your salvation. He's praying to God. He's calling out to God. And he says, and grant me a willing spirit to sustain me. And that idea of a willing spirit, well, we were talking about that verse and how David actually prayed that after he sinned and committed adultery with Bathsheba. And even though God had his hand on David's life, he committed a great sin. And so we were thinking about how the same impulsiveness that made David willing to say, I'll fight Goliath, which you're going to see a little bit more at the end of this message, may have been the same kind of impulsiveness that got him in trouble when he saw a woman that wasn't his wife, and he said, I want her. So the same thing that said, bring it on to Goliath, he said, bring it on to the wrong woman. And that impulsiveness can work both ways. So in that context, instinct can become impulsiveness. There's a flip side to passion. If you're a passionate person, your greatest asset can become your greatest liability. So, has that ever happened to you?
Never. I have no idea what you're talking about.
Okay, so for example, when we first were meeting together, I remember you asked me, it was a pretty straightforward question, and I liked it. You said, what's one thing that would surprise me about you that people wouldn't see in the pulpit? And I said, without hesitation, I don't know if you remember, I said,
temper.
My temper. And I just saw your face relax because we had not ever spent any time together, and you were just like, did you really just say that because you're a preacher? I was like, oh yeah, let me tell you stories. And I started telling you about the times where I flipped out. And then you started sharing some stories, and it was like, all of a sudden we were like competing for, and
I don't remember that either.
Yeah, but anything, concussions. So why did that surprise you to hear me say, I struggle with my temper?
Well, one of the reasons is because a lot of times when you sit out there, you believe that you understand that person, or you see them, or you know them. And sometimes when we sit in that seat and we're just hearing somebody, it's easy to identify with them when they're giving you a message, when they're telling you things that you enjoy, you want to hear. And so for you to say that, it just shocked me because obviously I've never seen you, never seen your temper out on the stage. But it's also, this kind of shows you that people don't always, when people look at you or make comments or leave comments at the bottom of an article about you. Sorry.
I don't know what you're talking about.
I'll be honest, I'll stop by myself on that one. But sometimes people don't realize if those same people the roles were reversed and they get to see you, how you act at your home or act in that situation, would they be saying the same thing? And so it's just real difficult because you sit up here or you stand somewhere and people think they identify with you, and they actually have no idea what you go through or what you experience or why you responded that way.
Mm-hmm. So to bring back the same question in a different wording, how has the same passion that has made you so successful gotten you into trouble and caused you to struggle?
Well, one of the reasons with we're using the word passion, that I've struggled with is, if everyone has ever seen me, I always, my son Boston, who we call Bam, is the opposite of me.
This kid has great hair.
Yes.
His hair is amazing.
Yeah.
It is, isn't it?
Yeah,
like
good
a
gene
lion.
pool.
Yeah, gene pool.
And so, I'm off subject, I forgot. Oh, okay, yeah. So he's just like me, but one key element he doesn't have. He smiles, and I frown a lot. And so when he was a baby, he used to do what they call the daddy face, and he frowns just like me. And but a lot of people see me on a football field and they say, well, he seems unhappy, or he's always frowning. And for me, really, I've been so passionate, and I've just wanted to accomplish and want to be successful, that I haven't enjoyed the journey. And inside, I've kind of enjoyed it, but outside, you see, oh, he's always frowning. He's just, because it's all about, has been for me, it's all about not feeling valuable. Mm-hmm. And so it's like, I can't smile about this because I haven't accomplished my goals. I haven't accomplished what I wanted to do. And so that passion has overtaken my happiness. Yeah. But I've been happy. Right. I've been enjoying it. Right. But I haven't really displayed it. And I haven't even forced myself to, hey, you're in the National Football League. You was when I was a shorter version of what I am right now, this is all I wanted to do. Now you're doing it, and you're complaining about it. Man, get over it. Either enjoy it or stop doing it. And I don't want to stop doing it. So I'm trying to enjoy it more and more. And it's been fun.
Mm-hmm. And we'll talk in a minute about how you've changed. And, we were thinking about how there's a fine line between passion and obsession. Maybe obsession is a good thing sometimes, and sometimes it can be a bad thing. But with passionate people, one thing that sets people apart who who do the things that God has called them to do. And I hope that this interview doesn't just turn into, lessons about what it's like to play professional football as much as it is like just how to approach life passionately and how to realize that we're all dealing with the same internal struggles and we each have a calling. This is something I try to preach. So this weekend, you may see me talking to a football player. In a couple of weeks, we may be interviewing or showing a video of a single mom who's raising her kids with passion, and it's the same passion. But what I've noticed about passionate people, whatever they do, I'd like you to write this down, number 3. Passionate people interpret intimidation as an invitation. Think about it for a moment. So here's David. He hasn't even been at the battle. He's just back home tending sheep. And he gets there on the day of the battle. And it says in verse 23, 1 Samuel 17:23, that as he was talking with his brothers, just doing his job, delivering the pizza, Goliath, the Philistine champion from Gath, stepped out from his lines and shouted his usual defiance. And David heard it. Whenever the Israelites saw the man, they all fled away from him in great fear. So the thing that everybody else fled from, David was willing to face and walk up to. And they were hearing the same voice. They were hearing the same threats. They were looking at the same situation, but one person interpreted that intimidation from Goliath as an invitation to do something great for God. And you've got to learn how to, I think, reinterpret intimidation, the things that intimidate you in your life, and realize that the people who do those things for God, it's not that they don't hear those shouts. It's that they press past them and they realize, well, if something is that difficult, it must be worth it. So I'm pressing back the intimidation and I'm going to look at it as an invitation to experience God in a greater way. Now, the reason I wanted to bring that up in this interview is because when people see you do incredible things and they wonder, how do you do that? And you come across as such a confident person. Does anything intimidate you?
Well, on the confidence part, I'm really confident in football, not because, I'm confident because of my preparation, of the things that I've done and the hard work that I've put in. I really truly believe it's playing football and to be able to play the way I play is a gift. I mean, especially at 5'9", it's a gift. But my preparation and the things that I've done, my confidence is in my preparation, not in actually what I think I can do. So that's where my confidence comes from. Yeah. But as far as what intimidates me, failure intimidates me. And that's why I work so hard, not to be a failure. And also too, as far as with David and Goliath and seeing that, I would have been one of those guys running out there just because if I'm gonna go out, I'm gonna go out swinging and trying. Yeah. I'm not just gonna go out by hiding. Yeah. If you're gonna get got, you better get got some other way than hiding behind a rock. Right.
I'm gonna sling my rock. Yeah. I'm gonna sling my rock. I love that. Well, I mean, what are some of the things that you have to push through beyond just that general idea that people wouldn't see? Again, the stuff that when they see you so confident, they have no idea that you had to push through what before you did it?
Believing that I have value.
But see, that sounds ridiculous to most people because they're like 13 years in the league. Anybody who knows anything about football, how could he not feel valuable? So I think convince us that you struggle with not feeling valuable because you look pretty valuable.
Great example is when I first met you. One of the things I struggle with is having a lot of friends. I was a loner. One of the reasons I go back to the most important people, impactful people in my life never told me that as much as I needed to be validated by those important people. So a lot of times I sat in that pit. So that was woe is me. So I was a loner. And so when you're a loner, you're going to find out, what they say, idle time is the devil's workshop. So for me, idle time was formulate a plan, formulate what I want to do. So I decided, hey, I wanted to play ball. I wanted to play football. How was I going to learn? So a lot of times, back in the day, you're sitting in your room, and that, the radio, you didn't have all that other stuff that we have now, but the radio had the antenna going, and you listen to music, and then you got the paper and the ends of the cassette tape to record that song that came on, so you trying to record it. And so for me, I would sit on the floor and practice catching the ball. And so a lot of times, that's where my times went. So for me, listening to music, especially old school music, when I listen to it, it brings me back to where I was, sitting in my room. So a lot of those times, or riding a bus, listening to a Walkman.
Come on, somebody.
And so all that stuff, so pushing through that, and just realizing, hey, these are the things that I don't do well, and I have to push through them. And I got to make myself available to guys on my team. I got to make myself available to non-football players. I got to make myself available to my wife, to my daughter. I got to broaden my horizon in whatever thing I lacked. And for me was being transparent, being open, because I'm an introvert.
And you probably only got about 13 years left to play for the Panthers, by my calculations. But looking into beyond football, taking the passion that you have, how do you think you're going to take the passion that you've had for the game that has been so much a part of your life and then make it the next part of your life and your calling? Well,
for me, the biggest thing in my passion is I've always formulated a plan. Like my mind, when I'm either two speeds. I'm either up or unconscious. And so when I'm up, I'm thinking and formulating a plan, like formulating a plan for this off season, which is this year, this off season, all the things I want to do. So I'll go in there, look at all of my weaknesses. I examine myself. Did I watch enough film? How many routes did I run good? How many passes did I drop? How many great passes I made? How many great passes did I make real easy that the dude on the couch that had a chicken wing, 3 brownies, coleslaw, a bag of chips in his bag, in his lap, think he can catch it, So like all those things, so I'll chart that. And so I'll just look at all the things that I need to improve on. Did I carry my work into my home? Did I spend enough time with my kids and with my wife? And did I also spend enough time with myself so I can recharge? And so I'll just look at all those things of how and what I need to improve on, and then try to formulate that plan to go, okay, this is what I need to do better. And also look at the bad habits that I've created in my life in that season of life, because you don't know until you go back. And then also too, sometimes husbands got to do that very thing we don't like doing, is checking in. Hey babe, how am I doing? And that's really important, because whether you want that or not, you need that, because that person loves you way before you became an NFL player, or way before you became that CEO or that high executive, Bank of America, Wells Fargo, Wachovia, SunTrust, PNC Bank, all that stuff.
Is there a sponsorship I don't know about going on up here?
No, and so all those things you look at, and you got to realize the person that was with you, or the people that were with you when you were nobody, they have the best thermometer of who you are today. And do you align in that category?
That's great. Speaking of that, I wanted to bring Angie up to get the real answers to all these questions. Would you welcome Steve's wife, Angie, to the stage for a moment? What happened? I missed it. Let's keep the passion PG on the stage.
Worship.
So he said worship.
Worship. Somewhere in Deuteronomy it says it.
Yeah.
I can't remember which one.
All these little Christians had to come from somewhere, right?
Yeah.
Now, I want you to write this fourth one down, and I think this would be a great way to kind of close our time together.
Icebreaker thing too?
Oh, yeah.
Just kidding.
Would you prefer that Steve never talk again or never be able to run again?
Never be able to run again.
I just made that up on the spot. I didn't have one planned. It's the best I could do. Great. That would have been heartbreaking if she had said talk, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
I don't know. It was a tough one, either one.
Yeah. Rough question. I'll do better for the next interview. But I want you to write this down, and I want Angie to talk about it a little bit. Passionate people, this is the fourth point, will fight to the finish in the battles that matter the most. Passionate people will fight to the finish in the battles that matter the most. Because, you know, when you look at why David killed Goliath, which we'll talk in detail about next week, but you have to understand the motive before you see the method. And I think David's motive is clear in 1 Samuel 17:26. And he asked the men standing before him, he said, what will be done for the man who kills this Philistine and removes this disgrace from Israel? So he's talking about the incentive, but then he talks about the real motive. He says, who is this uncircumcised Philistine that he should defy the armies of the living God? And he's talking about, this isn't right. This is God's glory. God's supposed to have this victory, and it's not right. And we got to know you guys, Holly and I. You know, we're blessed to be able to know you as a couple, but I was kind of blessed, Angie, by the role that you play. Because, you know, sometimes if you're the wife of someone who's in public, you do a lot of the stuff behind the scenes, and nobody's telling you great catch. Nobody's telling you good game. But it's your support that makes it happen. I know I could say that about Holly and go on about it for a 5-week series. But you really had to fight for your marriage. Like, I leaned over to Steve before we came up during worship. I said, did you ever think you'd be up here sharing like this today? And he said, I was thinking that exact same thing just because of how far God has brought you. I would love for you to just share from your heart about what it was like to fight for your marriage and where you guys started and where you are and what that's been like.
Yeah. Anybody who's married or been married knows that marriage has ups and downs and highs and lows, and takes a lot of effort and work and energy. For us, first probably 3/4 of our marriage was more like a battle. It was tough. We got married young, we had kids young, we're thrust into this NFL lifestyle, this world that neither of us were really prepared for or could handle very well. And early on, we weren't walking with the Lord, and for a long time, we weren't walking with Him together. So it was a battle, it was a struggle. You know, on the outside looking in, most people probably wouldn't have known, but it was tough.
And it got real bad, like, can we even do this at a certain point?
Yeah, a few years ago, we kind of hit a breaking point, spent some time apart, and tried to decide, do we even want to continue to move forward? Can we do this? We both knew that some changes need to be made, and ultimately, you know, I knew that it was something only God could do. It was going to take kind of a miracle to get through it.
So you're at that point, and you're thinking, can I do this anymore? You know, what made you decide, yes, we're going to do it, this is worth fighting for?
You know, as I've been thinking, trying to prepare for this, I'm nervous, so bear with me. Plus, this is a tough act to join, come on. I feel like I need to change my name to Stephanie or something. Steven, Stephanie.
Clever.
But along the way, I just would tell myself I don't want to let the enemy win. That was one of the biggest things, is, you know, no matter what.
Yeah.
So I remember a time we were driving in the car, and we started arguing. I don't remember what we were arguing about.
You were arguing with me. You started it.
Yeah.
I was a victim.
It escalated quickly. We're screaming. The kids were younger, I think, in the backseat kind of crying, and I remember he just pulled over, got out, and started walking home. So I hopped in the driver's seat, started driving home, tears streamed down my face, and just kind of feeling hopeless and not knowing what to do, but at the same time not wanting to give up, not wanting to quit. So we got to that point a few years ago, hit that breaking point. And for me personally, I know for both of us, but for me that changed my relationship with the Lord a lot. At that time, I really had to rely on Him more, trust in Him more, turn to Him to meet my needs. Constantly prayed on my knees in my closet. He gave me a verse that was a promise for me, I felt like, and just saying, forget the past, move forward, I'm gonna do something new in your life.
Yeah.
So clung to that promise, and we came back together, and with a lot of hard work, a lot of counseling, God has done an amazing miracle in our marriage and restored, and He's really a God of healing, and with Him, nothing's impossible.
I love it. I love it. So one of the reasons that I knew I should do this interview is because you said to me a few weeks ago, I don't think you knew that I would act so quickly. You said,
No.
I feel like I need to share our story, and I feel like God wants to get glory out of this story. I said, what specifically? You said that God can change people, that God has changed Steve. He's changing him. Would you say he's pretty much perfect now?
Sure. Maybe that'll get me a foot rub later.
Yeah. Work it. Let me ask you, as we close, Angie, what would you say to the person who has someone in their life and it feels like Goliath, man, like this thing is never gonna change, and they're thinking about giving up on that person? Would you just speak to that person for a moment?
I would just say don't give up hope. Like I said, nothing's impossible with God. It's never too late with God. People might give up on us and quit on us or walk away, but God never does. So He can change people. He can change our hearts towards people. He can really work miracles, and sometimes it's not in the time that we want it to be. But really, at the same time, this life's not about us either. It's about Him and glorifying Him, and sometimes we just have to have that perspective that we're doing this for Him, not for ourselves or anybody else. So I would just say don't give up hope. Keep walking it out, walking with Him one day at a time.
It's awesome. Yeah, fighting. Steve, I want you to have the last word as the campus pastors prepare to come. What would you say to the person who has given up on themselves and they feel like God can't change someone like me, He can't love someone like me?
Man, God can change anyone, and He can have an impact on your life, whether you want Him to or not. And God will decide at His appointed time, when His clock hits, that He will change you, and you just need to be prepared and ready to receive it.
Can we give it up for Steve and Angie Smith? Thankful for your passion, your love for Christ. Come on, help me thank them.